Well, in season one, Major Daniel brings former NYPD star detective Carl Hickman onto his new police team in the ICC. He is a reluctant member of this team for reasons that we discover as the season goes on. We realize that Carl Hickman has more than a couple of plates spinning, and we begin to figure out what are some of the other things that are very important in his life besides the job that he has with the ICC. And I love the way that Ed Bernero throughout the first season really started to peel back the layers, and we begin to find out what is really making this guy tick. So at the end of season one, we're fully aware of who the team members are and kind of what their positions are and what their relationship is and what they do. Season one ends with a bit of a cliffhanger for all the characters. And for Carl Hickman, I guess you would say his nemesis, a character named Genovese, played by the incomparable Kim Coates, he captures him finally at the end of season one, only to find out by the end of that final show that he is once again on the loose. So season two picks up with a bit of some loose ends to figure out for everyone. But first and foremost, we lose Mark Lavoie's character, Major Daniel, and that is number one priority at the beginning of season two, is to get him back. In the storytelling of season one, sure, there are some layers of Carl Hickman that are revealed, and things that which is also part of writing really well, as Ed can do. Not only do we reveal them, but also, the characters begin to understand them. I don't think he can hold on to, I don't think he can look at the fact that there's a hole in a wall and it's leaking and not eventually begin to patch it up. But just because you patch up that hole doesn't mean there isn't another one on the other side of the hall. That seems to be a lot of who Hickman is. But in season two, Hickman goes back to New York for the first time. And when he gets back there, he meets someone. We meet someone for the first time. He sees the character of Amanda Andrews, again, played by Carrie-Anne Moss, which, if you have to ask me if I have a highlight of season two, her name is Carrie-Anne Moss. And when we meet her, you all of a sudden discover so much more about who Hickman is and his past and things that he is never shared with anybody. And the audience really gets to experience that at the same time that he does, the re-experience of being with her again. And that in particular has been, in my opinion, in everything that I've done on this show from the beginning, I find that the journey with Hickman and Amanda Andrews connecting again is the most defined and the absolute greatest joy that I've had so far. The newest member of the team actually joined the team last year in season one, when the character of Arabela came along, played by Laura, who I have to say I went to the audition for the final two actors that were up for the role and had a chance to read with both of them, and I'd never been in that position before, and I thought they were both wonderful. But there's something that's hard to put a finger on, hard to give it a name of what made her the one and absolutely special, and she was, and she is. So she came on last year with her own sort of level-headed, twisted way of looking at something which is probably more Hickman-like than anyone else. I have great scenes one of the first times that I meet her, because her character arrests me in season one. And the scenes that I have when I'm basically being interrogated by her are really fun. and played very, very well by Laura. We were all going to have to deal with that as characters this year. How does that mean? Where does that shape up? You know, for most of the second half of the first season, she was gone. She was missing, and we'd get little pieces of she's here, she's there, somebody heard from her, and then all of a sudden there's nothing, and then we find out there's an accident, and indeed it's her. How Hickman ultimately felt about it, I can't really describe the scene. You'll watch it and see for yourself. But I will say that it had a larger impact on him than he would ever admit. And if it wasn't for Ed's brilliance in figuring out a way how to get that out in a very true way, in a scene, in a moment, in a life moment, which he did, it was the perfect way to have Hickman express himself about it. But you know, from the very beginning when he first met her, because at the beginning of season 1, it was Anne-Marie that was the one that was most special to him, and I believe to her. So sure, we had to take the time, and it was, you know, it was important to do that. It was important to not just be, you know, we can hold the procedural element to the show on hold for a minute and let's just really get to something that's real, because I think that's what makes this show better than just, you know, any old procedural crime of the week. When Major Daniel discovers Hickman in the first season, what you don't realize in the beginning is that the reason that he's living in Europe, in a trailer, in a carnival in Amsterdam, is all about Genovese. That's part of that peeling back the onion, you find another layer. All of a sudden, Hickman starts asking questions to Anne-Marie. Maybe could you find that out for me in that? Everything's on the side. What is he looking for? What's he looking for? Well, eventually we figure out what he is looking for. And what he is looking for is Genovese. He finally gets him, only to have him get away. So season 2 begins that the quest is back on. I mean, we have to settle this. And then I find out, because Amanda Andrews, Carrie-Anne Moss's character, calls me and tells me, hey, why didn't you tell me? Who's this? The Genovese is on the loose. He's back in New York, so I'm going to go back. I'm going back to my home ground to not only look for him, but figure out this relationship that I walked out on, and my ex-partner, Amanda Andrews. So we need to get him, and we do. We figure something out, because he's smart, but hey, we're a little smarter. And but when we get him back here, it's very complicated, because Donald Sutherland's character, Dorn, has something else in mind for Genovese, and maybe he could have a higher purpose for him, and I'm not so sure if that's the way to go. But that's very cool how that unfolds and what we figure out about that. But we have him now. It's a very interesting moment when, you know, we shot those scenes in Sofia, Bulgaria, at these incredible old and eclectic sound stages that we were told have a New York street. They have a New York street, a whole couple of blocks. Well, you know what? They do. It's unlike any New York street in New York, but it looks fantastic, and that was our set. So I believe one of the first scenes that I worked on was on this New York set. And a taxi cab pulls up, and I get out of the cab, and I'm back in New York. I mean, of course the plane had landed, but now you get out of the cab, I'm right in front of my old precinct. And as I'm standing there in the street, all of a sudden somebody comes up and just gives me a smack right up beside the back of the head, and it spins me around. And it's my ex-partner, Amanda Andrews, which she has a few things to say to me, and all I have to say to her is, you hit me. And she turns and she walks away. And something that was unexpected for me, Bill, and not for the character, because the character hadn't lived the moment yet. But when everybody walked inside the precinct and I followed them in, as I walked up to it, my eyes just drifted up to the front door of the precinct and the sign, the NYPD, and I'm so glad that Laurent, our DP, our incredible DP, put a camera inside looking out, and he captured this moment of just looking at it and thinking, there's a hesitation before I walked back over that threshold again of like back into this place that was my life, meant everything to me. But the reality is, a few years ago, 3 to be exact, I was let go because of my injury. So it was pretty cool to walk back into that. Very cool as an actor to have that moment like, wow, here we go. Been down this road. When I first talked to Ed Brunero about doing the show, I liked what he wrote. The first 2 episodes was all I saw in the beginning. That's all everybody saw in the beginning. And I said, Ed, I like the show. I really like the character. There's so much that I really like about it. If I go, I'm going with my family. I found out it was Prague. My wife and I, Kimmy, about 8 years before, took a trip. We had a few days and we thought, wow, where are we going to go? We don't have a lot of time. Let's go to Prague. So we went to Prague, and we were in Prague just for 5 or 6 days. So when this came along years later, I don't think if I had that moment back then and loved the city back then, I don't think this would have worked out. But we both knew Prague a little bit, but not like we did this time. To visit a city is lovely. To spend time, last year we shot in Paris for 2 weeks. We shot in Nice for 3 weeks. Lovely, lovely. But that's visiting. We were going to Prague to live in Prague. I've spent the better part of the last year and a half living in Prague. And, you know, it's only words, but to say that it's a second home would even come up short. It's much more than that. I love this city. I love the people. I have friends here. Go Sparta. A lot of great hockey in the Czech Republic. A lot of great hockey. I love the old arena. I go all the time. I walk the streets. I have a gym that's a half an hour walk from my house, and I don't take a car. I walk the river. Rain or shine, snow, doesn't matter. I take my walk every morning. I take my walk so much that I walk by the boat guys that work on it in the morning, and they're like, they see me every day. I'm walking along. I got my headphones on. This is a beautiful place. It's a safe place. You know, it's just, it's home. It's one of my homes in my life.